On paper, Genshin Impact is the ultimate vehicle to play with your friends. It is an open-world action-adventure game that has a focus on a party of 4, combining elements together to overcome obstacles and enemies. It can be played on mobile, PC, or consoles, and offers crossplay, meaning no matter which platform you choose, you can still play with your friends. At launch in 2020, the co-op mode felt like an afterthought. With several systematic design choices holding it back, Genshin Impact's co-op felt unnecessary and irrelevant. With almost 2 years of feedback and constant updates, has Genshin Impact's co-op improved for the better? This is the question that I, Varsona, will be trying to answer today. Is Genshin Impact's co-op worth experiencing in 2022? Well, let's dive right in. From the perspective of a game designer, there are 3 modes of cooperative play: parallel co-op, step-by-step co-op, and simultaneous co-op. To better explain these modes of co-op play, I'm going to refer to a Gamemaker's ToolKit video produced by Mark Brown, where he interviews Oliver Granlund, a game developer who has worked on It Takes Two, a game focused on the cooperative experience.
How did you go about designing for 2 players?
I think we can break it down to 3 types of co-op. You have what we call parallel co-op, and that is essentially just you're playing your own single-player game with another person. And then you have step-by-step co-op, which is essentially like you do something that allows me to do something. It goes back and forth kind of. And then we have the third one, which is like simultaneous co-op, which is when we're both having to act at the same time. We wanted a variety of all of these, and I think pacing those moments in co-op is a big challenge to make right, and that's something we cared about a lot.
What kind of co-op does Genshin Impact provide? The answer to this question is really important because everybody has their own preference on which mode of co-op they enjoy the most. For me, I really enjoy simultaneous co-op just because it puts the player at a need to communicate and work in tandem with their partners, otherwise they will fail. This margin of error creates tension, potential for frustration, but also creates an atmosphere of camaraderie through shared struggle. That is not to say parallel co-op and step-by-step co-op are lesser in experience. As Oliver stated earlier, a combination of all 3 makes for a truly great co-op experience. And that's probably the best way to state it. I think Genshin Impact at launch was held back by leaning in on too much of one type of co-op and not the other 2. Let's jump into a time capsule and go back to 2020, 2021, and talk about the Genshin co-op experience of that time. The 3 biggest problems at launch that Genshin Impact co-op face are as follows. Number 1. The host player while exploring in co-op cannot interact with any NPCs or objects in the world that can precede a quest. This may seem like a minor annoyance at first, as you can just tell your friends to, hey, could you leave my world for just a little bit while I pick up the quest or turn in the quest or proceed a little bit past this quest step, but repeat this a multitude of times and it does start to impact on the gaming experience. Furthermore, being an open world adventure game means that if you can't pick up a quest or talk to some NPCs while you are in co-op mode, you may not even realize that you are missing something. So that means that at best, every time you encounter something slightly suspicious, you tell all your friends to leave. Or at worst, you're gonna miss out on a chunk of content and have to redo the same things you already did without the magic of first-time exploration. Now, this issue of interacting with NPCs also compounds into some of the puzzles. At launch, Genshin Impact had a lot of puzzles that revolved around elemental pillars, where you have to use the corresponding element at the pillars to trigger some sort of puzzle mechanism. This pillar, however, can only be impacted by the host player, meaning that if your friends were of the correct element at a pillar, they would have no impact on their ability to help you solve a puzzle. Meaning you as the player would have to keep switching your characters in and out and in and out, and in some puzzles where you have to hit the pillars in a rapid succession, this means that you probably won't be able to do it because you can't swap in a fast manner while in co-op. This leads us to the second core issue of Genshin Impact co-op. It ties very deeply into the party system of Genshin Impact, and what was a fun thing for single player becomes quite an annoying bit for multiplayer. Let me explain. Every Genshin character has a kit consisting of 3 main actions: attacking with their normal attacks, using their elemental skill, which does a thing, and using their elemental burst, which does a bigger thing. The other major part of it is that every character is tied to an element, and the game is all about mixing elements together to form reactions. So while you are playing this game normally, you are highly encouraged to swap between multiple party members of different elements as you play, each of which has an elemental skill and an elemental burst to utilize in terms of combat functionality. So this means that a player would have 4 elemental skills and 4 elemental bursts to work with, alongside a myriad of passives that the characters have individually. That would have broken the knees of mortals, but not Yelan. C6 Yelan has indestructible knees. That's why she does so much damage.
She's the bee's knees.
And Vince is dead. Oh no! He thought he was smart enough to survive the fall, but he wasn't C6.
Yeah.
He didn't have the indestructible Constellation 6 knees that come packaged with every Archon, like Yelan, the Electro Archon.
Insolent.
Nani? Excuse me?
This is not Yelan propaganda. So the characters are designed to be simple by nature, at least on an individual level. So one singular character is usually simple enough to pick up and play and understand without too much trouble. The fun comes in mixing and matching for a team comp. That sounds amazing for co-op. However, it does reduce the individual action the player can take depending on the size of the cooperative party. If you only have one partner with you, so 2-player co-op, each of you get 2 different characters, so 2 elemental skill and 2 elemental bursts to work with. If you are playing a 3-player co-op, only the host gets 2 characters to play with, and if you are playing a full party co-op, everybody gets 1 character. So now you are more incentivized to talk with your teammates to make a good team. However, in Genshin Impact, some characters are designed to be a DPS character or a support character, or a character who is fully reliant on giving somebody else maybe their elemental burst properties, and so on and so forth. In layman's terms, some characters are really strong, but are really boring to play with because their only function is to be using the elemental burst, and then for the player to just swap out and play a different character. Now in a co-op setting, you might not be able to do that, but you might still want that supportive capability. If I was going to be the healer, I might not have the most fun gameplay experience in Genshin Impact, but that would be okay, right? Because I'm giving away just a little bit of personal enjoyment, so that way we can clear this difficult content that we are facing in Genshin Impact as a team, as a cooperative team. Welcome to the suffering. I will be your healer today. Remind me to press the burst button sometimes, because I'm going to forget.
You're gonna be the healer? Don't worry, I'm equipping some chicken.
Like, hey, Max, I need a heal. It's just like, what? What was that?
You know what would be even better is if there was a consistent way for shields to be applied.
Hey, you know, you guys want a shield and a heal on the same thing?
Oh, look at that, I finished that quest for you.
Wow, this guy is so good. And that leads to my last issue with Genshin Impact's co-op. In the open world, you don't really have to worry too much about the content being difficult, and that is a good thing, don't get me wrong. I actually like it that people can kind of explore casually in peace together. If we were to get rid of some of the annoying parts about like questing or interacting with puzzles and letting the team interact with it together, it'd be totally fine, it'd be awesome. But for the players who want a little bit more challenge or a little bit more bite in a cooperative setting, you're not going to find that in Genshin Impact, at least at launch.
How did you...
I will have order.
NANI?
I hate you. Why?
So we talked about it before, open world stuff, including open world bosses, are generally pretty easy to tackle. There are dungeons within the game, but most of them, at least for co-op, is just farming for artifacts or equipment within the game. Early on during the game's life, there were some limited time event dungeons where we could do like a boss rush of some sort, or just fight bosses with a gimmick or some certain buff added to them that makes it more challenging. And I thought that was really cool because in these encounters, you can't have an overlap or duplicate character, and when the game was just starting, you know, everyone's just like building certain characters. Sometimes if we overlapped characters and built the same ones, we didn't have another character that was strong enough to take on the content, so we would have to kind of figure out, hey, can you play this person? Can I play this person? Who plays what, right? And that's like really fun for me. I enjoy that kind of struggle where we can't really solve the challenge unless we really communicated and worked with each other and tried to time certain phases or the boss mechanics or things like that. There were also events that were limited time that let you play mini games with your friends or compete with each other or even work together to get through like a dungeon where the combat wasn't really the focus, it was more just the activity of doing things together. You could also compete with them in certain mini games to like score the most points, but it still offered no rewards when you did this in multiplayer. So it was just something you can do for fun. There's even a limited time competitive mode that comes out at times where you can play hide and seek with your friends, where there are 3 people who hide and 1 person who is the hunter. And you can play this in co-op with your friends, or you can play it with random people. But if you play it with your friends, you get no rewards. That is a really, really big shame. I guess all I'm trying to say is, if you combine all 3 of these issues, it ties to not only just the game being very limited in terms of multiplayer, but also if you are a simultaneous co-op player like I am, you're going to be pretty disappointed in the potential that Genshin Impact has, right? Because there is room for simultaneous co-op and step-by-step co-op. This room to rely on your teammates is there in this game. It seems that they have a clear focus on keeping this game as parallel co-op as possible. Nothing wrong with that. It's like, hey, you can be along for the ride, but I don't really need you to clear this content. I can play this solo if I want to. And most people do play it solo, being a mobile game at heart. I'm just fighting for better, right? I'm fighting for the culmination of all 3 co-op types, parallel, step-by-step, and simultaneous in this game. We've seen sparks of it, but at the time, there really wasn't anything worthwhile. Now I'm going to hop in my time capsule and play through some of the new content that just dropped in Genshin Impact, most notably the Chasm, a giant new zone with a new boss and all this other good stuff. And I'm going to do it all in co-op just to see how it feels like to play through that content with people, see if there's any more limitations or if it's more fun. So I'll see you all in just a little bit. It's time for me to time travel. Boop. Alright, Varsona from the future here, ready to talk about the Genshin co-op experience in 2022. So let's address problem number 1. Is the host able to talk to NPCs, resolve questing, or even not miss out on things when they're playing in co-op for Genshin Impact? And the answer to that is yes, sometimes. Throughout our play session, there were many quests that I could just talk to and be stuck in a cutscene, and while the co-op partner has to wait, the host can view entire cutscenes, pick up a quest, progress a quest, and even finish some quests without having to drop out of co-op. There are still some issues with turning in items to NPCs. You cannot submit items in co-op. This seems to be a technical limitation of how they coded the game and their inventory system. I'm not sure. Cannot submit items in co-op mode. See, this is the biggest problem.
Oh, we're like so far away from you. I'm just gonna drop out so you can submit, and then I can come back.
Yeah. Like
let's go.
this is the biggest sad is that they have to do this, and then you have to go into the menus and turn off co-op mode as well. Like,
and manually turn off co-op mode after.
To this day, if you need to turn an item in for a quest, you can't do it in co-op. And some story quests you cannot do in co-op as well if it like opens up a new world area or something like that, so your friends have to leave and you have to go through it. But that's more understandable. That might be like some kind of crazier, more detailed movie-like cutscene that has to play or something else. But for most of the time, this is great. Like, I could play through most of the Chasm without telling my friends to just, hey, you gotta leave. In terms of puzzles and interacting with the world, I am sad to say co-op partners still cannot interact with elemental pillars, and they still exist and are used in certain puzzles in the game. This may also be a technical limitation that Genshin Impact kind of hard-coded into the game that is much harder to fix. So the smart way that they've been handling that is by offering newer gameplay challenges or obstacles that allow your partners to interact with it, like picking up orbs or stepping on pressure plates, amongst other things. So this is kind of good to see. They see that players really want to just explore the world with their friends, and they're offering people more ways to do that. I just hope they're able to fix some of the systematic issues, like the submitting items in co-op and the elemental pillars activation in the near future, so that way exploration feels extra good to just bring your friends along for the ride and have fun. So for problems number 2 and 3 that I mentioned in this video, that still exists, but I think they're making a headway towards more challenging content, or at least adding in more mechanics outside of, hey, I need you to do more damage. Is that cool? For example, one of the bosses that got added in requires breaking a wall to kind of stun them, and another boss introduces mechanics where you have to pick up a certain item so that way you can do damage to their shield.
You want to do the achievement where we don't pick up any of the butterflies?
Oh, too late.
I picked one.
As long as you don't hit it, I think, right? Actually, we don't really...
Yeah, she just don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oh.
Well.
Dang, Annie ruining everything.
That's alright.
Damn, Annie. Ruining
He said it's so right, so right.
And another boss also has something where you have to hit this item of a certain element to trigger your shield in time, so that way your team doesn't get wiped. So there are hints and flavorings of mechanics where you have to rely on other people being added into the game. It's just not strong or important enough yet to where it matters. They could fix this with a co-op challenge mode of some sort where the boss is beefed up and requires 4 people who are decently geared to clear it for extra rewards or something like that. They could also maybe even add in a endgame co-op mode like they already have with the single player mode, where it's a string of dungeons with different enemies and rules that change the way that you have to engage with this content. I can just imagine already being in a week where maybe my characters that I built up doesn't play well with the rules of the dungeon of that week. So let's say like, oh yeah, physical damage is reduced and this element just doesn't do any damage at all. Maybe I just happen to build up a lot of characters of that element and damage type, and I have to rely on my friend. Or hey, yeah, we really need a shield, and I may be the only one who can supply a shield in a consistent way to the whole team. Just by adding in like challenge bosses or a co-op abyss dungeon, Genshin Impact will be adding in more chances for step-by-step co-op, where I need you to do a mechanic so I can do another mechanic so you can do damage to the boss, or simultaneous co-op where we both have to talk to each other and time our energy expenditure and usage of skills to survive certain phases or mechanics of a room or a boss or a challenge, whatever it is. I want to state again real quick though that some of this already exists in challenge modes for limited time boss rush events that they have been doing for years. It's just very rare and does not happen very often, and it's not necessary at all. You don't get any additional rewards, and that is a shame. So it's not really an incentivized thing for people to do anyways, and it's much easier to clear these challenge things solo. Having a consistent and constant way to play this type of co-op though would enhance the Genshin co-op experience greatly. And as for character depth, I think that will come with time as newer characters are introduced, but by giving us more things to focus on the field, like mechanics, whether it's stepping on a plate or collecting some orbs or making sure I turn an enemy around because I'm taunting them for whatever reason, or opening up a shield, just by having a player engage in something else other than doing damage, this could alleviate the problem of certain co-op partners playing as a supportive character and being left to dry when their skills are on cooldown or they don't have enough energy to use their burst to heal you. So anyways, detailed ranting aside, I do think Genshin Impact co-op is great if you enjoy parallel co-op. If you enjoy simultaneous co-op or step-by-step co-op, Genshin Impact is getting there in 2022. I feel like if you're looking forward to challenging content with your friends, I can't really recommend this game just yet. But if you're looking for a game that you can play with your friends and talk about with your friends all the time, like if this was a game that came out when I was still in high school or middle school, I would be over the moon. It's one of those games where you can play on your own or with your friends when they have free time. Regardless of how you interact with your friends, you can always talk about team comps or character builds or some hidden secret on the map, or even the latest events that's coming out. Since it's a live service game, the story is always getting built up upon, so there's a lot to really dig in there, and it can be a really good casual time if you do want to have a very relaxing experience with your friends. Just know that right now, Genshin Impact in 2022, the co-op experience is still optional, unnecessary, and for what it's worth, brimming with potential that I hope gets met in the near future. Genshin Impact is an awesome, amazing single-player game. It is an okay multiplayer game if you like parallel co-op. It is an unsatisfactory co-op game if you're into simultaneous or step-by-step co-op. Genshin veterans, if you stuck this far, I gotta ask, What are your most favorite and least favorite parts of Genshin Impact when it comes to co-op play? Or do you not have any co-op friends? Because if that's your problem, you should join my Discord, link in the description below. My name is Varsona. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you next time.